Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands
upcoming tours.
and show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of February 12th, 2024, Jason Crosby.
Welcome back. This is All That Jam, where music has no limits. We have a lot to get into this week, including delving into the top 3 stories, fan questions, plus our flashback interview with the multi-talented Jason Crosby, including some O'Teal talk, his LP Cryptologic, and creating a work-life balance, plus a lot more. I made it out to see Space Bacon and Litz Friday night for Litz's album release party. Great crowd. They're amazing live. And as you remember, Amanda, talking with Austin and Nick, all the tech they use, it was crazy to see all the wires on stage. What can I say about Space Bacon? They're a force to be reckoned with. Solid 2-hour opening set, Burning Down the House cover, Big Yitta Spinach that had some Banded Gypsies jam in it. Plus, I got to hang out with Kevin Legal, which made me so happy. He was hanging at the merch table, so I went down and got to talk to him for a bit. So it was a great night. And I think you were at a merch table too this weekend, weren't you?
I was. Kevin, I feel like this past weekend was, I don't know, the time to connect with prior guests that we love. And you're right. I got to do some merch for Drunken Hearts. That's Andrew McConaughey's band. We've had him on the show, and they were doing a lot of great promotion for their still new album, Reckless Ways of Living, that came out this past summer, that has got a bunch of special guests on it, including Vince Herman and Molly Tuttle. And Torrin Daniels from Kitchen Dwellers opened up with a solo banjo set. And I got to tell you, Kevin, I was really excited for this, and it did not disappoint. Torrin has an incredible personality, so dynamic. And it was hard to believe at times that there was only one person on stage because of the way he uses his pedals and some really cool effects on the banjo. So sounds like both of us had a really good music weekend.
Did he do some live looping kind of thing? Is that what he was working?
I don't know if I heard loops. What I would say is I heard a lot of different types of echo effects, where almost simultaneously you're hearing that really traditional acoustic twang, but then underneath it is this kind of heavier feel. And I don't know how he does that, but I'm really curious, and I'm going to try to find out, just to get these different textures within a song. And he's got a really great voice, and also just a lot of chit chat between songs. He said he doesn't usually get a chance to hear the crowd. It's kind of a small spot that he was playing in. And so he took the opportunity to heckle us back, and it was a lot of fun.
Nice. And interesting enough, we got to also speak with Sean from the Kitchen Dwellers last week
Mm-hmm.
about their upcoming tour and album. And also last week we had quite a few people on. We had Joel Saracula from a band called New Visionaries. We had John Spignesi with Scott Murkowski on about his album, and a guy named Claudio Corona who put out a single with Adam Deitch on Vintage League. So look for all that coming soon too. But I think we have something big coming up called
The top 3 stories of the week.
All right, Kevin, got some stories this week. I feel like we would be remiss if we did not start with the story that everyone is talking about, seemingly. And of course, that is Goose naming their new drummer. This was just about a week ago that we heard Cotter Ellis was officially named as Ben Atkins' replacement. Um, there had been some teasing with this, right? Some pretty cryptic clips on social media that I guess turned out will be TED Tapes 2024, that improvisational set of songs or moments, as they call it, which does feature Cotter on drums. So people were just going crazy. I mean, it's a very successful social media campaign, if you want to call it that.
They're
And
good at that. Huh.
they are good at that. It was super mysterious, a lot of imagery. People really had no idea. So I have to say, it's also kind of impressive that they kept something like that under wraps. Um, so they also premiered a 30-minute audition video featuring the band chatting with Ellis, playing live with him on drums, and people are extremely excited. Ellis is a member of Burlington-based jam band Swimmer, and has also performed with Haley Jane, Zach Nugent, and Marcus Rezak, who offered a couple shout outs online, I saw.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was Tim and I listened to the jam session, whatever you call it, that 30-minute thing, and he was like, was really digging that, and I was like, I was digging it too, and Rick didn't sing, and he was like, maybe that's why I was really digging it.
Got to look at the whole picture,
It,
Well,
it was I really did enjoy it though, and I think that I discovered that I have the same issue with them that I do with Widespread. I just don't like the guy's voice.
and that happens. And I also know you and I both, we love the instrumental music, and the longer time goes on for me, I almost seek that out sometimes. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. That TED tapes, that just improvisational session type feel to it, to me, it has always been very cool. And I think that's a really interesting way to introduce someone with material that's new, all ready to go. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the stranger stories from I guess the end of last year and coming into this year is the Ben leaving and then bringing the new drummer in, and makes you scratch your head. But I guess this is the maybe this is the direction they want to go in instead of a more tighter, I don't know,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term, four on the floor kind of beat.
I think it could be. And I'm very curious to see how the dynamics might shift in different ways during, a typical show. So that's always interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of good, energy and some excitement for it. And the statement that was released also felt very personal. It didn't seem like a canned, 5 sentence type thing. It felt like this is something that they're really excited for. And I don't know if you saw any of these comments online, Kevin, as well, but more than one person in my circle noted that Trevor was smiling a lot in all of the pictures that were released. So he seems happy, and hopefully that's a sign of good things to come.
All right, so it's only Trevor and Rick left now, if you're keeping score from the original band.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Sometimes you got to wonder, just how things shake out, but that's how it goes. And I think evolution can really result in some pretty awesome things. So for
Right.
me,
Yeah, like
I'll say, I'm excited to see what they can do.
I mean, the Motet only has one of the original guys, but they've been around forever, and they keep putting out new music and pushing themselves, and
Hmm.
so
Yeah. So to
we can't
me,
all be fish.
we can't. And you know what? That's a really good reminder, though, Kevin, because I think that there's something to be said for expectations management in general. And I don't know if maybe I'm using that as a general statement to the goose community, but sometimes you got to take a deep breath and say, I am not in control of this ship. So,
Right.
yeah, so excited for that. Of course, a bunch of tour dates have gotten announced, and so they're ready to go. It sounds like. So that's the first story. Definitely wanted to talk about that. The next one came up on my feed, and I had to laugh because I thought it was an Onion article or something from the Hard Times. Apparently, just a couple days ago, a man climbed the Las Vegas Sphere, literally got to the top of it, and there's a picture, and he looks so small you can't even tell that it's a person, but was able to get up there and caused a whole bunch of damage to the external, kind of, let me start over, to the external components of the sphere, which is all of these lights that they arrange into something called pucks, um, and they are not meant to be walked on. So
Oh,
yes, I guess it's very delicate. and there's millions and millions of these lights that are arranged in very particular order. I guess an engineer was inside the building when he saw, looks like Maison Deschamps. Doesn't he? To me, that is a name that I'm not sure if that's a real name or not. I don't know. But he was climbing what they call the exosphere and actually talked to this engineer and said, "Oh, I'm fine," and just kept walking up to the top.
Oh
You imagine?
man, that's crazy. Now, and he's gonna be paying for that. Ouch.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that just because of the design of the building, the engineer tracked this dude on his climb up, and apparently that man said he was going to climb back down, but the police or whoever it was that decided to meet him got him at the top of the sphere. They said it would be a security concern to allow him to climb down the way he came. So they didn't want to do a helicopter rescue. They were able to, I guess, remove some of these lights and let him climb back inside somehow. I mean, I'm actually more fascinated than ever about the engineering and the structure of this place. Uh, you know, but it's a very odd thing. So there was a note posted on Saturday by this person who had climbed the sphere. He said he disagreed with the reported total damages of at least $100,000, and then alleged that police would not let him use the bathroom while he was in custody. So he ended up having to go a little in his pants. I mean, is this real life, Kevin? Or
That's crazy.
something else? I don't know anymore.
I saw a meme with they put the naked guy from the Grateful Dead
Yeah.
show up there.
Yeah. Is Chris Christie up there yet in his beach chair?
Yeah, right.
Or Bernie?
Or Bernie, right? Yes. Oh God, this is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, I guess, huh?
Sometimes, we need that sometimes. So I'm okay with it. But I got to say, that didn't take long for somebody to try to get up there, although it is that kind of building that makes people want to try things like that. So
Right.
it would have happened at some point.
Hopefully, he doesn't end up in jail.
I know they're calling him the pro-life Spider-Man, and I'll just maybe leave it there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, well, I guess we'll have to see if anything like that happens again during any of these extended runs that our bands are playing there. So we're going to go from the ridiculous, which would be this story, to something completely different. And Kevin, I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. This is pretty complex. And I had mentioned earlier, I was really not sure I'd be able to do this justice, but I have to talk about this article that I saw in the New York Times. And the title of it is, How Do You Get Acoustic Instruments to Play Electronic Music? And I'm going to kind of go into this just a little bit. First thing I'll say is that Ed Sheeran has a brother, Matthew, who is a composer and is doing some pretty cool stuff. He's translating this very particular kind of electronic music into music for a chamber orchestra, and it's microtonal music. So, Kevin, can I nerd out on this for just a second? Would that be cool?
Yeah.
All right, because I just thought this was pretty interesting. And then, we'll see for those of you out there who really have a good grasp of music theory, this is something that you'd probably be able to get a lot out of too. So we know that 12 notes make up an octave. Those are 12 semitones, and that's kind of how most Western music is organized. But what if there were more tones than that? There was a composer out of Chicago who died last year. His name was Easley Blackwood Jr., and he composed something called 12 microtonal etudes for electric music media in the late 70s. It was a project funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities. And he was trying to show off these qualities of different alien sounding octaves. So music that doesn't sound like music to us. And it's stuff that is really hard to absorb because it's not what we're used to hearing. But they were released, a long time ago. And Matthew Sheeran apparently has taken all of this work, and during the pandemic, so this is a pandemic project, arranged all of those scores into versions for traditional tuning so they could be recorded by the Budapest Scoring Orchestra. So I'm not going to get too much into this, but I will say um, they had to create separate tracks in these isolation booths to feed them into a computer and then retune them. And it was something like 27,000 recorded notes. I mean, it's pretty wild. So the reason I'm sharing this is because I think that as much as we really love to celebrate our music community for doing new and interesting things, which is happening all the time, there's also some pretty cool and also really like weird and innovative stuff happening elsewhere. So sometimes it's good to look just a little bit beyond, what we're used to listening to. And so I'm going to go try to find all of this. I haven't had a chance to listen to too much of it yet. Um, but it's something that's really hard to describe what this microtonal feel is. And so I would just say if anyone out there is interested, we'll definitely be sharing links to this and you can go and give it a listen for yourself.
It's so funny that we have Western music, which is American music basically, or English, and then there's world music, when probably 90% of the music in the world is world music.
Well, exactly, right? It's like, I won't get political, but it's like religion too, right? There's so much out there, and you do have to go looking for it, or maybe be really receptive to finding it. But it's really cool, I think, when you can listen to something that feels completely different than what you're used to. Give it a chance, and there's usually something you can connect back to the stuff that you already know. And so I like this story because it combines technology, it combines music theory in a totally unique way, and someone doing something that's never been done before, which I think is harder and harder to do in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested in hearing it too. We'll have to dig up a link to an example and put it out on the socials there so everyone can check it out.
Yeah, and I'm curious if anyone does decide to listen to it. And by the way, it is on Spotify. And the entire 17 songs of the original compositions will only take you about an hour to listen to. So, it's something that could be done.
Nice. It's like punk rock.
Right? Yeah, it's something I wouldn't necessarily put it on while you're trying to work, but maybe if you, kick back a little bit at night, that might be something interesting.
Right. Minor Threat's whole discography, everything they ever recorded is 45 minutes long. It's like
Really?
30 songs or something.
You know what? Get them in there, keep them wanting more, right?
Right. I always joke I can listen to their whole discography in the time it takes to listen to a Fish song.
Yeah, while you're just in traffic trying to get down the road.
Oh.
Well, Kevin, thank you for letting me share those stories. They were 3 very, very different stories this week.
Yeah, no, that was good stuff. Good stuff. So let's get into this Jason Crosby. He plays with Phil, is what I think most of our listeners would know him from. Plays with O'Teal, but he also plays with Jackson Browne, Jenny Lewis. He gets out there. So this first segment we're going to get into is him adapting as a sideman, and gets into a little bit about O'Teal, and also an album that he put out called Cryptologic, which is an instrumental album because we love our instrumental music. And we'll see you on the other side. Okay, yeah. So obviously collaboration is a fundamental aspect of what you do as a musician. It's integral to your musical journey, I guess. How do you foster a sense of trust, openness, and creativity when working with other musicians?
I think it starts with friendship. All these guys, we've had life experiences together outside of music, and I think that really helps enable the trust when you get on stage. When I think about my history with O'Teal, there's such 25 years later now, when we get to play with O'Teal and friends, there's just such a love and a trust there, just from two friends and human beings sitting next to each other, and luckily for us and through hard work, music comes really naturally to the two of us. So it's just like a way it's another way for us to communicate the way we would like on the phone or just talking, like we're talking right now, So I feel like there, uh, I've been blessed to have had this career so far that has been with all of these amazing people that I can also, call friends. So that's where it comes from. And I think, even like new friends, like Jackson Brown, like he wanted to spend a lot of time just hanging out before we made a decision for me to join the band. It's like, it's just something that's not taken lightly. It's like the personality's gotta mesh, because
Well, you're entering into a family, basically,
yeah,
when you.
yeah, that's what it is. That's it. You nailed it. I mean, that's what, I mean, you spend 24 hours a day on a bus and dressing rooms and stages and hotels. I don't care if it's, 30 years or 3 or 6 months, you get that experience of, a long tour together and you're bonded for life.
Right. And how many bands have blown up? Like the Sex Pistols, they did one tour of America and it blew them up. They just couldn't handle working with each other, I guess, even though, God, that's a whole nother story. All right. You obviously you play with so many other musicians, you play on the side. But let's talk a little bit about Cryptologic.
Okay.
You,
All right.
it was I guess your first solo album or your second solo album?
So I guess it would be my third that ever reached the public.
You had the EP?
Well, no, I had two. I had two full length records, but I really should put them out online, but they were never digitized, so they were only CDs that were manufactured by me and sold out of the back of a van. But I did a record in 2000, actually produced by Lo Faber, called Out of the Box, that has O'Teal and Derek and Leo Nocentelli and all the people I was playing with at that time. That was an instrumental jazz funk record. I printed up 1,000 CDs. I sold 1,000 CDs and never really reprinted it or put it out digitally, which I think I should do. Maybe
Bandcamp. You can probably get it up on Bandcamp and charge people
Yeah.
$9.99.
I could probably do it today. And then in 2003, I made another record that was produced by John Snyder that came out on a label called Artist House and Blues Planet, where there was two labels. And that had Susan Tedeschi and Derek and
That's 4 chords and 7 notes ago.
4 chords, yeah. And then there was an EP, which I don't know if it ever came out, in 2008, called Words and Glass. I don't think that ever came out, but I made it. And then Cryptologic was the next one after that. But in a lot of ways, it is kind of like my first record of that type of music, where it was a little bit more based on songs than jams. It was I had a collection of songs that I wrote in my later days of being in New York City. So 2010 through 2012. And I had this album's worth of tunes, but they were all like really kind of depressing and mellow. What I did, but I really liked some of the songs, and it's about four tunes that actually made it to Cryptologic. But the idea behind Cryptologic was to include those 4 songs, but then write some new songs that were kind of reflected where I was in life at that time, because had been in California a few years. Some things had kind of turned around for me, just personally and just all around, where I was kind of in a better place. So Tim Bloom from the Mother Hips and I, we went to Hawaii and we wrote the other songs for the record, which were, this kind of like balanced out the original 4. So it took a long time to make, because I don't think that record came out till like 2016 or something like that. 17, maybe 17, I think.
Yeah, 17.
So, Yeah. So
And
I
it
mean,
was produced with Carl Durfler, who worked with Tom Waits, Dave Matthews. What was it like working with him?
I love Carl so much. I have a couple sessions with him coming up in a few weeks. I'm really looking forward to working with him. Carl's a master. He's the ultimate professional. He's very encouraging. He's very positive, but while also knowing what he wants to get out of you, and so it's not like he's easy on you, but he's encouraging. The like he it's the best way I can say it is it, Cryptologic was challenging for me because I'm not really a singer, and I was trying to emote and get these songs out. And I've spent my life being an instrumentalist, but wanted to take a stab at expressing myself in a different way. And so Carl was the perfect person to kind of help me through that, and yeah.
You mentioned Jenny Lewis earlier, and we've
Yeah.
talked about Jackson Brown. And then you work with Phil, you work with O'Teal, wide range of artists across many genres. How do you approach working with different musicians and adapting your style into their various musical contexts?
Well, it's definitely it's something I have to think about. It's not just something that I can just be like, oh, like, just sit down and play. I do give it some thought because they are so different, not just in the musical style, but what is expected from me in my role with them, even if it's the same instrument. Like playing with someone like Jenny or Jackson, um, you're playing parts from a record that are important. Some of them are really important to setting up the singer or setting up the next part, and they can't really be deviated from the way um, somebody like Phil would expect you to, and not want you to play the part from the record.
Right.
So, so it's and people like Jenny and Jackson may have a specific request where Jackson more so than Jenny because his music goes back so far, where his songs from the 70s or 80s or whatever time period has evolved into the 2020s, where it's like, yeah, that was what was on the record, but I'm doing it this way now, or I want to hear something like this, or so it's not that Jackson is rigid to the record, but he is rigid to the arrangement that is currently in place. So and Jenny, I think is similar to that, and I think and it's not unsimilar to probably a lot of bands in that category. If you
Right.
want.
Kevin, I know that we've got lots more to come from the chat with Jason. Before that, though, want to just take a moment and remind everybody, if you are listening out there, that you can find us on social media at All That Jam Pod on all the major social media channels. Check us out on YouTube as well. Don't forget about that. And you know what? Wherever you happen to listen to podcasts, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, like, follow, and let us know what you think. I've definitely been seeing online um, more lately some references to people catching some of our content. I know you mentioned Litz earlier, the most recent clip that we dropped just last week. Some people had referenced that, and that makes me really happy. So if you're out there, definitely let us know that you're listening. Kevin, do you want to tell us what's coming up this week?
I do want to tell us what's coming up this week. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we have we're catching up with Sponge's Dan Underkoffler. The last time we talked to Sponge, we had the whole band on. This time we got one guy, and it got to be more than catching up. But tomorrow's clip is basically their big 2023. Wednesday, we got Jono Manson on the Bootlegger LP that he did with John Popper and toured with Blues Traveler last year. So you want to check that out. Thursday, Alan Evans on What's Happening Now. We love Alan, and he is just so great to talk to. He's such a fun guy. we got into a lot of stuff with him. So you'll have to tune in and check that out. On Friday, DJ Williams on his upcoming album By Way of RVA. DJ has been out there hustling, working hard. He's basically taking it all on his shoulders himself, and a new label trying to make it happen. And we are rooting for you, DJ, there. Saturday, the FDR on the Nashville scene. Amanda, you had asked them about what it was like in Nashville, and we got into a little bit about the Tin Pan Alley aspect of it versus, writing your own songs and avoiding the machine of Nashville. And then next Sunday, my fault, we have Chris Junker about working as a sideman and all the projects he does, and we love Chris too. So make sure you check that out. All right, so let's get back into this with Jason. We got into asked him about music he listened to for pleasure, and he mentioned a few people, and then that morphed into having a work-life balance and how he achieves that. So let's check that out, and we'll see you on the other side. How important is it to have that space and the time off? I know a lot of musicians, it seems like they work every weekend all year, and it just seems to me that they can't be that good for your mental health to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's doable. I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm kind of like a grizzled veteran, but that's still in their 40s. Clinging to my 40s, turning 49 on Friday. It is important to take some time for your mental health and your physical health. I've learned with my time doing this, and while I don't, I live in this house by myself. I do have a girlfriend who has two kids that I've known since they were 4 and 6, and that are 12 and 10, and that I love and that love me, and and so to be able to spend time with my girlfriend and her kids is important to me too. After this today, I'm going to, my girlfriend's daughter's spring concert. I've been teaching her violin since she was 4. I'm going to watch her play in the spring concert. Then I'm going to go watch her son play a playoff game in Little League. And he had to choose between Little League and his spring concert because they ended up falling on the same night because he's in the playoffs. Right. So we're going to go see his game and then bring him right to the concert, so it's like these things, I would miss these experiences if I had, decided to book shows, right. So the life goes by, you got to experience, life, but my life is music and playing gigs. So I'm happy also with the time that I've dedicated to that too.
If you're not listening to music for work or creating your own music, do you have any music that you listen to that you like?
Yeah, I have I get like obsessed with artists sometimes, where I'll just like find something that has and usually it's something that's been out for a long time, but then I'll find it and I'll be like, I want to know everything about this artist. And my latest obsession has been this guy Benji Hughes. And Jackson told me about him while we were traveling back from New Zealand, and he thought that I should know about Benji. And so I downloaded the record he suggested, which was his first album, A Love Extreme. And it really reminded me of my brother in a way where, because my brother's record is 20 songs and it's 40 minutes. And Benji's record is like 23 songs and it's maybe 60 minutes, but it's these vignettes where it's just like, here's the song, it's 2 minutes, and there's like a lot of ear candy with what Benji's doing. It just sounds good. It's well produced, and and it's weird. It's not standard. It's not normal, and it really grabbed me. And so I just couldn't stop listening to this record. And then obviously it's like, okay, well, what else does he have? And let me look up some live videos. So Benji Hughes has kind of been my latest, but prior to that, I was, for years, I was really into Beck, still am, like Beck Hansen. and Father John Misty was another one that was a more recent thing. And it's kind of funny. I ended up playing with him after this like weird obsession, like, so it's like,
This is
I spent
awkward.
I spent a couple months, on the road opening for him with playing with Jenny. And but the way that the way that I guess it just happened was that we were always either driving to the next city or something. My mind was elsewhere. I wasn't watching his set. Like we do our set and then we would do our thing on the bus and go. So I didn't really see his show, but I like met him and his bandmates, and I heard a couple songs from behind the stage and thought it was good, but nothing grabbed me. Then after the tour ended, I downloaded one of his records randomly and like listened to it, and I just went down that rabbit hole. I'm like, this guy's fucking awesome. These songs are great. Went through his whole catalog and and I didn't think I'd really ever see him again, but I was just like, man, this is like one of my new favorite artists. So then I was with Jenny. I'd been doing these hangs with Jackson. And so I was hanging with Jackson, and then I went and I met up with Jenny afterwards, and we went to a party. It was Jonathan Wilson's birthday party. We got there, and I guess we were kind of the first to arrive. It said on the invitation, arrive at 6 p.m. So we arrive at 6 p.m., and there's this like big party with like 7 rooms in this like fancy like hipster LA scene, and there's nobody there. We go from room to room, and there's nobody in any of the rooms. So then but there's like people who work there. So we like go to the last room and there's a bartender. We order a couple drinks. And then I'm like, oh, there's 2 people outside in the courtyard. And I'm like, hey, wait, isn't that Josh Tillman? Isn't that Father John Misty? She's like, oh yeah, that's Josh. Let's go. So we get our drinks. We go out there and Josh says, he's like, I can't believe I'm seeing you guys. He's like, I was just thinking about you. And so I'm assuming that he's talking about Jenny. So I'm looking at Jenny for her response, and she's like, you going to answer that? And I was like, oh, you're talking to me? He's like, yeah, I want to get you on my next record. He's like doing the violin thing. And I was like, dude, I'm like your biggest fan, man. Like I started like gushing about how much I love his music. And he's like, okay, well, like, let's do this, and again, that was right before the pandemic hit. And that was one of the first sessions I did in a studio. It was the first session I did in a studio after the lockdown, was in LA for Father John Misty's record, Chloe in the 21st Century. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I love it. It is very strange. When the first time I met Lo, he was on another show we have called Wook Plus. It's a YouTube channel that's really fish centric, but I convinced him. I was like, Lou Faber wants to, I can get Lou Faber on. Matt said he would get him to come on, and I fanboyed on him. I was totally like, can we talk about Driving West? And I wanted to talk about the songs. And yeah, now what can you do though? I mean, it's funny because afterwards he's like, I love that. He's like, I guess if you're Taylor Swift, it can become a little much, but if it's just one guy, it's a whole nother thing.
The first time I met Lo was in Auburn, Alabama in 1994. And Solar Circus was opening up for God Street Wine, and I was so excited because they were like,
you were young, weren't you? What were you,
yeah,
like 20?
man. I started seeing them, prior to that at the Wetlands when I was, like still fresh out of high school, or still even in high school. So I kind of had a similar thing where, I went up to him and I was just like, I totally geeked out, cause I was on that classical perfection tip, so I was like, so I listened to $1.99 Romances, and on Hammer and a Spike, when it goes to the guitar solo at 3 minutes and 26 seconds, that you're in Aaron's guitar harmonies, there seems to be one note that's a half a step off based on all these live recordings that I have. I think that the interval is that, like, did you make that change, or was that a mistake? And he's just looking at me just like, I don't know. Maybe that was a mistake,
And then you do a Chris Farley.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. You idiot.
The Beatles were huge.
Remember when you were at the wetlands? That was awesome.
I love it. Oh my God. That's so funny. All right. Why don't we leave it there? And hopefully we get to talk again when you have some other stuff coming in. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Kevin.
Awesome, Kevin. Another great interview. And I just get so excited when you go down the list of what's coming up this week, even though I know what all of that is. It's just so amazing that we're able to share new content every day. So hopefully everybody out there's enjoying it too. Speaking of enjoyment, you and I both saw some great music this past weekend. I'd been thinking recently of show behavior, I guess, or people's tendencies as music fans to kind of get in their groove and do similar things whenever they're at a show. And so I had gotten a little bit curious, and I asked people over the last couple of weeks, what is typically the first thing that they do when they get to a show? Now, I'll be honest, this question in part came from some recent shows I had been to, seeing Daniel Donato out here in Colorado. And I have some friends that are huge Daniel Donato fans. And when I'm with them, I get in line early. I am there when the doors open and I am right up front. That is not typical Amanda behavior. And so it did make me think, what's kind of everybody's tendency? So I gave everyone 4 options. Find my people. I'm going to get inside and figure out where everybody is. I'm going to grab my spot, whether that's at the rail, soundboard, where I want to be. I'm going to get a beverage or something else. And for the most part, I guess maybe not surprisingly, people are either going to get their spot or grab their beverage of choice. I'm a find my people person. That's me. I want to make sure I have tabs on where everybody is, even if I'm not standing by them. So I tend to meander around a little bit, which is kind of what I do at a show anyway. Kevin, is there something that you feel like you tend to do when you're in a venue?
I would say I probably find a spot first, just so everybody can know that this is where we're going to come back to, and then go wander. But I'm with you, like at Dick's one Saturday night. I was hanging out with you, and I was like, whatever you're doing. I was like, we'll work it. And we did good. We went in late. We were only in a few minutes before they started. I was like, this is the way to do it.
Really great. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And you're right. It does come down to, I think, a lot of times the situation, and where you are and who you're with. I have to say, I am very respectful of people who stick to their guns and are going to get that spot on the rail no matter what. I respect it. That is not me, but I will go with that flow if that's what's happening. It's just commitment. And I just don't know if I've ever really been able to make that commitment on a regular basis for myself.
And not so much for me either. I was up almost on the rail at Space Bacon, but only because we got in early, because I wanted to make sure to catch the whole set, and I just happened to stand like to the side of the stage right in front of it. But I had I had a stool and everything. It was perfect.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, where I was last night, I mean, I had the table, but I was right by where the folks were kind of chilling on the side, and saw some friends who were enjoying themselves. And I like to be able to look out across the crowd a little bit. That I like to see the fans enjoying themselves. I like to see the lights from a certain place. But at the end of the day, I'm honestly just really happy to be there. So it's always interesting to see what people say.
I saw your pictures that you took.
Weren't they great? I thought they were fantastic. Way downtown.
Great.
Actually,
it made me wonder. It made me wonder about the venue. It seemed like it was skinny.
It is a very long. Actually, no, it is skinny. It's a small room. And my old iPhone 10 or whatever it is that I have really made it look a little bit different from where I was, and I did my best. I did my best.
There you go. That's all we can do.
That's right.
And with that, I'll say, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you next week, Amanda.
Have a good week, Kevin.